Welcome to the 5% Club podcast, the space where ambitious leaders go to master their careers and their lives. I'm ShaylaMKing, a former C-suite executive turned performance and happiness coach. And this is the podcast for leaders who want it all. The promotions, the paychecks, and luxurious amounts of time for what matters most. Each week, I'll teach you how to work less, make more, and design a life you love. Let's go. Hello, leaders, and welcome back to the 5% Club, the place where high achievers learn how to reach the next level without burnout. I'm ShaylaMKing, your favorite performance coach, and today we're talking about how to increase your capacity and get more done without feeling overwhelmed, rushed, or chaotic. Because let me tell you, the last 2 months, I've gotten more done than in some entire years, and I feel better than ever. So what's the secret? What separates high performers from the ones who stay stuck? It's exactly what we're diving into today. I coach executives on this every single day, and I'll be breaking down the biggest shifts that helped my clients go from overworked and exhausted to thriving at work and at home without losing their edge. Let's go. All right, so let me tell you what I've been up to. It has been a full and amazing couple of months. I sold out my one-on-one coaching at the end of the year last year. Still got a few corporate spots left. I hosted my virtual retreat Epic 2025, and we held our Vision Boards in Vino workshop. I launched this very podcast that we're talking on right now, the 5% Club, and I started the 5% Club waitlist for my upcoming group program. I created a bonus for my one-on-one coaching clients where they get to come together in a small group to create their blueprint for their best life. And personally, during the same 60 days, I had a slow Christmas break with my kids. I traveled to Cancun 3 times, went to Vegas with the hubby. I completed another IVF cycle, and I went to all the kids' things. We had basketball, rugby, track, and 2 dance competition weekends. Now, it sounds like a crazy amount of stuff in just 2 months, but what was amazing is it a lot? Yeah. But did I feel chaotic or rushed? No. Because I intentionally designed my time, my energy, and my focus. And that's exactly what I teach my clients. So just last week, I wrapped up a coaching session with a VP who felt like she was always playing defense. Her days were filled with back-to-back meetings, constant fire drills, and 0 time for strategic work. So we implemented my Essentialism for Executives framework. We identified what actually mattered and eliminated the rest. Within 1 month, she freed up 10 hours a week, focused on the right things, and her leadership presence skyrocketed. When you can get rid of all the mess, you can just see clear. You can know what's more important, and you can focus and really be at that higher level and in the flow. And that's what we're talking about today, how to increase your capacity without increasing stress. And there are 3 simple ways to do it. So let's dive in. So why do some people get more done than others? I spent years studying high performers and figuring out how some people seem to do everything while others get overwhelmed and stuck and just feel like they're always behind. And as I mentioned, I have found and built into my programs 3 key ways to do this. First, discernment. You have to know what actually matters. I use this quote all the time, but Warren Buffett famously said, the difference that successful people say no to a lot of things, and really successful people say no to almost everything. Right? So the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. So the first thing we have to do is really get good and hone our skills at discernment. And it's the difference between happy, effective executives and people who are just struggling and always feeling like they can't get out of the hamster wheel. Figuring out what matters and what doesn't. So I take all of my clients through a process. We coach each week on those things that come up, and we start to hone their ability to decide. By the end of our year together, they are so crystal clear on what matters to them and what doesn't, what pushes their organization forward and what doesn't. And they've lost all of the guilt in saying no to all of those pebbles that can fill your day and distract you. So high performers decide what matters and they cut out the rest. I'll give you another example. One of my clients that's a director aiming for a VP was working so hard, but on the wrong things. It was so much doing and being in it instead of the qualities that you actually need in an executive level. So we worked together to define her high impact priorities and eliminated all the tasks, meetings, and requests that weren't moving the needle. She stopped being busy and started being effective. She now works so much less, but has gotten more done this year than ever. So you do have limited energy. The secret isn't about doing more. It's about doing the right things. So the first step in this process is to have discernment. Now let's move into the second step. The second step in the process is high value cycles, and it's around mastering your thoughts and emotions. So there are times when you're in the zone. You've all felt it. You're clear, you're focused, you're productive. That's what we call a high value cycle, where you're getting shit done, making decisions, moving fast, and feeling great. Most people don't realize that they can create this state on demand. This is the work we do inside the 5% Club. We rewire your brain to stop the thoughts that cause buffering. We'll go through more of that in a minute, and actually create the energy needed to get things done. Because let's be real, you don't just feel like working out. You don't feel like doing the spreadsheet. You don't feel like doing the mundane work or prepping for that big meeting or tackling the hard stuff. You don't just naturally are a person that does it or a person that doesn't. Instead, what makes some people so much more successful than others is that they have learned how to actually cultivate that energy. Most people don't even know you get to do that. Right? So like before a podcast, if I don't feel like recording it, I have the tools and know how to put myself into the right energy and the right state to get that work done. And so that is one of the coolest things that we do with our mindset tricks. I teach my clients that you can change your energy level and your mood at any time. Okay, so you can cultivate the desire and energy to do the work you don't want to do. Your emotions do not come from just anywhere, and you're not able to have anything to do with them. They don't just happen to you. You're not a victim of them. Your emotions come from your thoughts. If you tell yourself I have too much to do, you feel exhausted. If you think this is overwhelming, you procrastinate. But when you shift your thoughts and you say, I'm so lucky to be building something amazing, you feel energized. I'm in control of my time and my impact, you take focused action. You're only a thought away from getting shit done. This is why mindset work isn't fluff. It's the key to sustained high performance. So one of the examples that I have from, that crazy schedule that I've had over the last 2 months is I had the choice. I was in Mexico and I was doing IVF, and I had the choice of staying there or coming back for my daughter's dance competition. That was really important to me that I was able to be there for her. She only has like 4 of these throughout the year. I don't want to miss a single one. And so I had to change my thought from, oh my God, this is going to be so exhausting. I was just here. And also while I was in Cancun, I had just started the Brown program. And so it's, if you haven't heard, it's an executive performance coaching program that I'm going through right now. And it's, 3 10-hour days in a row. So I finished those 3 days and then I'd immediately fly out to go to this dance competition only to turn around and fly right back the next morning. Right. And unfortunately, we weren't able to get a direct flight this time either. So we had the transfer. And so I could have said to myself, my God, this is going to be so exhausting. I just had these really long days. And now I got to travel and there's not a direct flight. And I've got to fly through and then I got to go through customs just to get there, to get to this dance thing. And the dance thing, by the way, like she didn't even perform until 10 at night. So it was a long day. And go to the dance thing. And then I got to go back at 4:30 in the morning, the next morning to the airport. Those are the thoughts I could have had. Dad, I reframed it and said, God, I'm lucky. Do you know how fortunate I am that I'm in a position that I'm able to fly back and see my daughter? That I was able to go back home just in time to be able to make it to her entire event and then come back the next morning and be ready for surgery. Like I was able to change my thoughts to feel gratitude. And damn, I'm lucky. Not everybody can do that, right? Not everyone can afford IVF. Not everyone can afford an extra trip back and forth to see their daughter. Like, I realize how blessed I am in that. And instead of saying it's going to be draining, I was like, I'm so excited to see her. I was so excited to be there for her. So that's just like one small example. But in any situation, the thoughts that we tell ourselves affect our energy immediately, right? So if we tell ourselves we're tired, we're going to feel exhausted and not want to do the thing. If we tell ourselves, I got this, it's going to be 1 hour, I'm going to have it done, I'm going to be so proud of myself. Always have enough energy for the things that matter most. For everything, but for the things that matter most. I'm so lucky to have this life that I live. I'm so lucky to have this career that I have. Man, mundane work, yuck. But you know what? I know how to get through it. When I first started my business, there was so much crap work that I wasn't expecting. I'm a coach. I worked in leadership development and in business for 20 years. And I love being in the moment coaching someone. I love training and development. It's like the being on stage, being on calls, and actually giving and sharing knowledge and going back and forth with another human. That's what I love. I love learning. What I didn't love was all the tech. Like, one of the things that blew my mind is I have a business that I largely coach clients on Zoom. And yet I have 17 different systems that are part of my business. It's wild, right? And when you go in, if you've ever gone into small business or just into a new area at work where you have to try a new technology or do something different, it's just one of those things where, like, you know, the task that's supposed to take 2 minutes and somehow it's like 4 hours later and you're on the phone with help desk because this thing broke this thing and didn't talk to this thing like it was supposed to. Those kind of mundane activities can stop us in our track and make us not want to go forward, and can make us just miserable when we say to ourselves, this is so stupid. It's not supposed to be like this. And why do I have to do it up? And so when I started my business, I had to change how I thought about all of that. And I had to tell myself, and there was a couple of quotes that I used at the time that were like, the mundane is what creates the business. The administrative tasks are what builds the foundation. So I had to say things like that made it feel like powerful. And I know this is not going to go like I expect, but I'm the type of person that pushes through because I want this business. I want to be able to help more and more people. I know the vision that I have for empowering others and helping others make a lot of money while loving their life. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Whatever administrative, boring activity, I just push through because I see the bigger vision. I had to tell myself all of that over and over and over again so that I wasn't like, this shit's for the birds. I don't want to do any of this, right? Or I just need to hire someone who knows how to do it. It really doesn't work that way when you start a business because no one person knows all of those 17 systems, and you just have to dig in and get some of it done yourself. You can outsource some of it, but some of it you just have to dig in and figure out yourself. So I want you to think about what areas are you avoiding in your work and how you can apply those thoughts to help you with them. Okay. So number 2, again, is really going to be about understanding when you're in a high value cycle and staying in it as long as possible. When you're in the flow, dig in, do the big things, keep going. High value cycles don't last forever, but you're able to use your thoughts to stay in them longer, right? And what I work on with my clients is we have high value cycles, and of course we have low value cycles. And we're never going to avoid low value cycles. Like, life is going to keep lifing, and our natural emotions are going to change, hormones are going to change. Like, we're not going to stay permanently in a high value cycle, but we're going to try to stay in them longer and get as much done and capitalize on them while we can, while we're in the flow. And then for the low value cycles, we're just going to try not to go as deep or stay in them as long. And we can use our thought work to help with that as well. And so that's part of what we go through in the 5% mindset, is teaching yourself how to avoid unnecessary pain and suffering. And you can do that by managing your thoughts. Now, we're not going to avoid all the feelings, right? We're still going to have sadness. We're still going to have embarrassment. We're still going to have shame. These things are human emotions and part of the human experience, but we don't have to stay in them as long. We don't have to let that doom loop keep us down and have us feeling like we're not hopeful. What we're going to learn to do is fail without shame. What we're going to learn how to do is to feel embarrassment. We're going to learn how to feel sadness. but then be able to come back out of it, right? And so number 2 is really around staying in high value cycles as long as possible and capitalizing on them when you're in the flow. Adding Epic 2025 was something that I really had to sit down with myself and say, do I have time for a retreat in January? And guys, I went back and forth on it. I was like, I want to have a slow Christmas with my kids. It's so important to me that I can take off when they're off. Part of what I love about having a business is having that flexibility. And if I add in something in January where I'm doing an all-day retreat, there's a lot of planning that goes into that. You've got to do marketing for the weeks coming up to it. So some of it was going to come over Christmas time. And I really had to make a decision on whether I wanted to do that or not. So I decided I was going to lock in. I was going to do it because it was really important to me that we had the event because I knew the power of it. I knew how so many high performers focus their time and energy on their career goals and not on their overall happiness for their life. And I knew there was some magic to slowing down enough to be able to focus on what we want out of our whole life and adding a bunch of fun into it and making sure it's an epic year. So I wanted to make sure that I offered that for my clients. So I decided to do it. And then we mapped out when we were going to have open hours and closed hours. And so my assistant and I took off for a full 2.5, 3 weeks over the holidays. So that meant that we had to have the program and the marketing done well ahead of time so that all of that could go out and we could still close down. And then we could have it ready to go when we came back without us working during the close time to get that prepared. So some of it was about being proactive. And as I always talk about, batching content and being ready for that. And so it was really important that we were able to do that so that I could fully check out and be with my children. One of the things that you'll hear me talk about a lot is having luxurious amounts of time for the things that matter most. And that luxurious amount of time over the holidays is something I was not willing to give up. So instead, I said the goal that I want is to do this retreat, and the conditions in which I will do it is only if I still get a slow Christmas with my kids. So you can do that with your goals. You can say, here's what I want, and here's the conditions in which I will create it. Because sometimes we think if we're going for the goal, then we just have to let it upset everything in our life. And we absolutely don't. You can provide the conditions under which you will design the plan, right? And under which you will execute the plan. So that way you're not going way and upsetting your entire life just to hit a goal. We can hit our goals while loving our life. That's the entire point of performance and happiness formula. And that's what we're really doing by staying in that high value cycle. I was in it after Epic 2025. I was like, oh my God, I was able to do this and have the slow Christmas and go to Vegas with my husband and just be in the moment in those things and come back and put on an amazing retreat. And so because I was still in that high value cycle, I was like, well, hell, if I can do that, what else can I do? And I was like, you know what? I've been talking about this podcast forever. People have been asking me for it forever. I know I want to do it. It's a passion of mine to be able to have another forum to share longer form content so we can get more resources out to everybody, so we can let people know these amazing results that we're getting by combining performance and happiness. And I just knew I wanted to do it. And so I had talked to people in the past about it and met with a couple of companies, and they said $1,000, 4 months, and they could get you live with your first 3 shows. And so I always like to do things faster than the average bear. And so I'd asked him, I said, well, if I respond quick to everything you need, could we go any faster? And he was like, 4 months is actually really fast. We've got to do intros and outros and music and art and figure out how you want to promote it. And you got to figure out your topics and what you're going to talk about and your first X many shows and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, if you're really responsive, maybe 3 months. Well, listen, y'all, I was in a high value cycle. And I don't like to conform to the timelines that people say for things. I think most of them are bullshit and full of filler. So instead, me and my team did it on our own, and we got out everything that you need to create a podcast, which is quite a bit, the things I just mentioned. And we did it in 2 weeks, and we had our first 4 episodes recorded, edited, and launched. And that was with the team of me and my 2 assistants. And so it's because I was still in a high value cycle. And when you're in a high value cycle, you're like, whatever, I can add that too easy. And when you're in that high value cycle, you just make decisions quickly. You don't say, well, I mean, it could be this or it could be that. So what had held me back for years with the podcast was that I kept saying, well, I think I mostly want to do solo episodes because I really want to share the performance and happiness formula. If I do solo episodes, I'm not used to talking that long without anyone interrupting and asking questions. And I love dialogue and going back and forth with someone. So if I'm doing a solo episode all by myself, and these solo episodes that I have seen have been about 40, 45 minutes long, damn, how long does that take to prepare? Like I can jump into a conversation or a workshop with somebody immediately, no problem, go for an hour. But without anyone interrupting the entire time, that might take a while. And so I don't know, like, here's the thing, like if I jump into something, I want to do it well. I don't want to half-ass anything. And I want it to be high quality, and I want my audience to really get a lot of value from it. And I'm never going to miss a week. Like I know I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. It's the kind of person that I've became, and it's the kind of person I'll keep becoming. And so if I don't know how long that's going to take me to prep, then I don't know how long to put it in my schedule. If I don't know how long to put it in my schedule, then I don't know if I can commit to it consistently. And it has to be consistent because that's how I've learned to win at life. So guess what I did? I did nothing. And that leads us to our final point for the day. You have to eliminate buffering. So buffering is the hidden productivity killer. And it's when you avoid taking action by distracting yourself with unnecessary stuff. So in this case, with the podcast, I was avoiding taking action because I made the excuse that the amount of time it was going to take was going to be too much for me to handle. So when I got in that high value cycle and I was able to make decisions without buffering, you know what I did? I just ignored that question. It didn't matter. I had made it so important, but it didn't matter. Who cares how long the episode is? You know how long I decided the episodes are going to be? However damn long they take, right? So if I can get the point across to you in 12 minutes, you're going to get a 12-minute episode. If we need to go deeper into the content and give more examples, then maybe it's 25 minutes. If I am on one and I am super hyped up and I think all of the added examples and information is valuable to you, maybe it'll be an hour. But most of the time, my podcasts, I'm assuming, are going to be somewhere between 15 and 25 minutes. And that's because I don't like adding fluff anyways. So why did I choose as arbitrary it needs to be 45 minutes? It's going to be as long as it takes. It's going to be as long as it needs to be. And as soon as I decided that, the rest of it didn't even matter. So if I was just going to come to you and talk to you about these topics that I already teach on all of the time, then I can do that without it being a 6-hour prep, right? And so just by eliminating that one thing, I was able to move forward. And when we're in high value cycles, we are decisive. When we are in high value cycles, we're like, okay, what's next? Answered, go, what's next? And that's what we were able to do by putting the podcast together in 2 weeks after waiting over a year of contemplating, probably 2 or 3 years of contemplating whether I was ready to start the podcast. So when you're in the high value cycle, take advantage of it. You're decisive, you're ready, you can create a lot, go for it. And then the third and final is around buffering. And so buffering, again, is when you avoid taking action by distracting yourself with unnecessary stuff. It could look like scrolling on your phone, watching Netflix instead of getting started, overcomplicating things, which is what I was doing with the podcast, or making endless plans instead of executing. And let me tell you, friends, I love making things complicated by having the perfect plan. I always loved the strategy side of business. And I really thought if we just created the right plan, then it could all go so much faster and better. But what I have learned over the years is to not get lost in finding the perfect plan, the perfect template, the perfect process, the perfect strategy, where to play, how to win, and nailing every single piece of it. But instead, doing what makes sense, being thoughtful about it, and going. And once you go, you can test and you can experiment and you can adjust, but don't get lost in the details of finding the best way. You'll know when you try it, and you'll be able to use that as an example. Any of those things are buffering. Buffering also includes drinking too much. It includes gambling. It could include anything that you do to distract yourself from work. It used to be like taking naps used to be one that I would do. And so you have to notice, how do I buffer? And for most of us, it is social media these days. How do I buffer? And then how can I take that off my plate so that I can focus more on action and actually getting things done? So it's really Another example of it is convincing yourself that something is so hard or so complicated or so overwhelming. That comes up a lot for my clients. It's not. Someone else has already done it. Someone else has already figured it out, and you're perfectly smart enough to figure it out too. Let's just make one decision, move on to the next thing. Don't let yourself think that it's harder or say, I don't know, because you do know. Let's go. One of the silliest questions in coaching is like, somebody will say, I don't know. And you reply back and you're like, so, but if you did know, what would you think? And almost every time they have an answer. Your knowing is there. We just don't trust it. And part of that's because we don't want to make a wrong decision. We don't want to commit. We tell ourselves it's hard. We tell ourselves, I don't know. But all that is self-sabotage that's disguised as preparation. Self-sabotage that's disguised as preparation. You got to start putting things in motion instead of just endless planning. So another one of my clients that comes up when I think about this is one who was looking for a new role. And he knew he needed to network more, but instead he just kept perfecting his resume and researching companies. He would even sign up sometimes for networking events, but then when it was time to go, like he would make some excuse. And like our brains, y'all, will make up the best excuses on why we can't. Our kid is sick, or you know what, actually this project's really important. I got to stay late and work on it, or. And so just notice when your brain does that, when your brain comes up with excuses for you, and do the thing you said you were going to do. You will get so much confidence from being able to be the person that does what you say you're going to do. And it just feels so good. So that's just another good example. Once we stopped the buffering for him and he got into consistent action and actually networking and actually meeting people and actually applying, he landed a VP job in 6 weeks. It was wild, right? So you just have to do the uncomfortable things. And it's one of the minimum expectations that I have for my clients. We talk about it before I'll ever sign anyone. I ask, are you willing to do uncomfortable things? And if you are, I can promise you success, right? And so it's in my contract and everything that you have to be willing to believe in the inevitability of your goals and dreams coming true, which is not light work. That is a big deal. So you have to believe that it can actually happen. And then you have to be willing to do uncomfortable things. If you will do that with me, I will guide you. You will get everything you want. It's really that simple. So high performers don't wait for the perfect time. They don't wait until they have the energy. They don't wait until they feel good enough to do it. They decide and they take action, right? So this has been a lot of content for today. I want to kind of summarize it up. So when you are thinking about what you need to do to get into action, you're going to remember that you get to control how you feel and you can put yourself into the zone. Tony Robbins talks a lot about this at his conferences. He has you like go into power positions and stuff, but there are physiological ways that you can get yourself into the zone. A lot of people like jump on a little mini trampoline, a rebounder. You can do the power poses. You can stand up and stretch, make your body big. It actually increases the amount of testosterone in your body that can give you energy. You can go for walks. You can listen to hype music. You can talk to yourself and give yourself the thoughts that give yourself the feelings to let's freaking go, right? And you don't have to be in the mood beforehand. You put yourself into the mood. It's really important to know that you have the power to do that, right? And so I just want to reiterate the 3 steps, and then we're going to talk about one final thing. So the first step is discernment, knowing what actually matters. The second is high value cycles. You're going to master your thoughts and emotions to get you into them. And then when you're in them, you're going to capitalize on them, right? And then you're going to eliminate buffering, or reduce buffering is more realistic. We're all going to buffer sometimes. It's okay. It's part of us too, is that we want to avoid things. We buffer because we either want to feel a certain way or we don't want to feel a certain way. And so either way, that causes us to buffer. So like, I don't want to work on this assignment because I feel like I'm going to fail. I don't want to make this decision because what if I do fail, right? I don't want to work on this because I'll feel stupid while I'm working on it. Or I'll feel embarrassed or it's out of my comfort zone. I don't want to feel uncomfortable, so I'm going to go do something else instead. The buffering is what gets in our way of success. Make sense? All right. And then the final thing I want to talk to you about is what you don't do matters just as much. So we talked about the discernment and focusing on what does matter. Now let's talk about the other side of productivity, what you say no to. Because increasing your capacity isn't just about doing more. It's about cutting out what doesn't matter so you can focus on what does. So at the beginning of the year, I made a few intentional choices. Back to my first example of how crazy busy this couple of months has been. Created and held a virtual workshop, Epic 2025. I held another event, which was our vision boards and Vino. I was full of one-on-one clients, servicing them every week. I traveled to Mexico 3 different times. I completed IVF. I have 3 kids at home that I was going to all of their sporting events. I had a slow, lovely Christmas, and I went to Vegas with my husband. This has all been in 60 days. While I also decided to launch my podcast. It was a lot. I added several things that I wouldn't typically have, right? So I added the podcast, I added the virtual retreat. Those are things that have never been on my capacity before, and had the full slate of coaching clients. And so to be able to add those things, I had to take away some things. And so I made a few intentional choices. One, the biggest one, I deleted social media from my phone. Gone. So I batch all of my social content. So you'll see a post from me every day on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you be seeing stuff, I'm there. But it's all batched. So I'm not actually there every day. And that is something that really helps me with my work-life balance. So I deleted all social media from my phone because I was scrolling and scrolling. Now I'll tell you, my feed is very positive. I actually enjoy being on social media. It's filled with, like animal stories and clothes and stuff I'm into, motivational stuff, business stuff. So it's all stuff that I enjoy. There's no negative comparison stuff or anything that makes me feel bad. I kind of filtered it to something that's helpful for me mostly. But I was spending way too much time on there. And if I wanted to go get these big business goals done while having slow time with my family, something had to give. So I deleted social media from my phone. I also told my friends I wasn't going to be on any group text. And I said, listen, I love you and want to see you in person, but I'm not going to be on these group texts because I have to get off my phone in order to get done what I want in my life and be around my family in a slow, meaningful, connective way. So I literally sent a text out and said, love y'all, but I'm out on all the group chats. And I would literally click the button. You can, in case you didn't know this, on any group chat, first you can silence them. If you haven't already done that, you should. And then you can just check them whenever it works for you. And then second of all, you can actually just go and say, leave chat. So I left chat. I told them, still love you, still want to be in the moment with you, but I can't live my best life if I'm on my phone a lot. And so that's what I'm working on. And then I said no to a lot of events and commitments and things that would be fun, but weren't at the top of my priority list. So I'm sure you guys can all see this with the constant pull that you have into urgent requests at work, and being able to actually use a decision-making framework to say, what should I work on and what shouldn't I, can be completely freeing. It'll give you the space to lead at a higher level and love your personal life, but only if you're very clear on where you're spending your time now, what matters to you and what doesn't. So my one-on-one coaching will actually look at your typical week. We'll start by saying no to everything and giving yourself some breathing room. So then we can evaluate and decide what matters and what doesn't, and what's going to really push the needle forward at work. It's going to make the biggest difference to your company and your business. And then at home, what's the most important pieces to you there? We'll define what those are, and then we'll start getting all the low-hanging fruit off. Trust me, there's a ton of it, of things that you can say no to. And then we'll start moving up the branches. And when I first started doing this and saying no to more and more, I was worried that it was going to totally wreck my career, that everyone was going to think I wasn't a team player and I wasn't involved and into it. And instead, what I found is people didn't notice. And you'll find that too, it's not as noticeable as you think when you stop doing all of the extras. And a lot of the extras you're not getting paid for. You might get a thank you, but you're not getting appreciated monetarily for it. And no one notices when it doesn't get done. So I'll help you through that, and we can decide what you should be working on and what you shouldn't be working on. And over a couple of months, it'll change your entire life. And you'll have that luxurious amounts of time for the things that matter most. So when you think about getting more done, which piece of it for you does it seem like you're overcomplicating? Is there a dream, a project, or a goal that's been sitting on the back burner, and you keep telling yourself you're getting ready to do it, you're in planning mode, but you're waiting on that perfect plan and you need to make a decision? What is it for you? I'm really curious, so that you can be ready to take that next step. So here is your evolve work. Identify the one thing you've been wanting to do that you haven't done. Simplify it, start it. Stop making it so damn complicated. You got this. I'd love for you to share with me what your one thing is. If you haven't already joined the 5% Club waitlist, you'll definitely want to do that. Currently, I am full on my one-on-one clients, but by popular demand, I am creating a very special and exciting group program where you'll be able to join us in the Performance and Happiness Lab. You'll learn all of the skills and you'll meet an amazing group of other high-performing leaders that can help you advance in your career and your life. Other people who really get it, who understand the demands there are on you today, but still want more. So we always say we're grateful and we want more. If this episode hit home, share it with a friend, tag me on social, and let me know what you are working on. We truly have the ability to create the life of our dreams. We're going to do it through our 5% mindset, by getting out of our own way, by stopping buffering, and by taking advantage of those high-value cycles. Let's go. I'll see you next week. Thanks for joining me in the 5% Club today. If you're ready to work less, make more, and design a life you love, go to ShaylaMKing.com to join the 5% Club waitlist. Each Monday, I'll send you something you can implement immediately, and you'll be the first to know when applications open for the Performance and Happiness Lab, my group training program designed to accelerate you into a happy, confident executive who loves their whole life. See you there.